Part 40. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 391. For the time being, my soul cannot leave the lotus divine jade. It is too dangerous without protection. Lin Yi slowly opened his eyes again, and this time he gained a huge gain. First of all, he truly broke through the ghost immortal way and entered the first level. Secondly, I have a deeper understanding of the spiritual path, a deeper understanding of my own strength, and know my shortcomings and strengths. Remember the domain name of this website, Taiwan Novel Network, rightward arrow. Standing up from the bed, Lin Yi put away the ground seal and came to the lobby with the crutch of destruction. It was already night outside, and there were almost no pedestrians on the road. There were not many guests in the master house. The three of them were sitting there playing cards, and everything fell into silence. Lin Yi sat in front of his French window and looked at the sky outside. It was pitch black and the whole world seemed very quiet. At this time, Brandy came over and said, "Manager, do you want to have dinner?" Lin Yi shook his head and said, "No, I'm not hungry today and I have no interest." Picking up his phone casually, Lin Yi opened various apps and started browsing. At this time, various short videos show the status of various places in the Red Lotus world. Basically, most cities have returned to calm. Only in the suburbs and wild areas will those strange entities appear, causing various dangers. At this time, special teams will be cleaning and stationed on the traffic arteries between cities almost every 1 kilometer. It is to prevent strange beings from interfering with the normal operation and communication between cities. From time to time, you can even see videos of warriors killing strange beings. In these videos, Lin Yi saw many powerful people at the level of human immortality. These people have different origins, and the martial arts they perform are completely different. Various exercises shine in the short video, and countless comments are praising it below. Of course, there are also professional trolls who comment on these people. A certain skill has gained a false reputation and looks glamorous, no matter what. But most people hold on to longing and hope. Martial arts began to officially enter the eyes of ordinary people, and at the same time, martial arts trends were set off in countless cities. It far exceeds the trend caused by the First World Change in the past. Lin Yi could feel that someone was adding fuel to the fire. After he opened the short video tide software, it kept pushing videos related to martial arts to him. It would be absolutely impossible if there was no one behind this. It seems that the empire is also anxious and needs more power to select strong men and maintain the stability of the empire. I'm afraid the situation is not as simple as seen in the video. Shaking his head slightly, a call suddenly came into Lin Yi's cell phone. Looking at the caller ID, Lin Yi couldn't help but frown. Huang Yiming? What does he want from me? After answering the phone, Lin Yi said, "Huang Yiming, what's the matter? Mr. Lin is like this. Now something has happened in Honglian City, and it needs professional people to solve it. Things related to the Wraith incident. You should be able to solve it. Red Lotus City is now a place where masters gather." Huang Yiming said with a wry smile, "We also want to solve it ourselves, but what happened this time is too strange, and we didn't find any clues." Lin Yi frowned when he heard this. "What happened? Please tell me in detail." "Mr. Lin, you should know that the sect has negotiated with the empire and reached a peace agreement." "I know this. Does it have anything to do with this?" Huang Yiming said in a dry voice, "It has a lot to do with this matter. The negotiations were divided into many rounds, and all major sects sent representatives. After reaching the initial agreement, the sect and the empire are having more in-depth discussions on various detailed matters. But something happened at this time. An elder of the sect died. During the negotiation process, the death of the sect representative is not a trivial matter. The empire immediately launched an investigation. But it turned out to be nothing. Another elder died yesterday. This incident immediately aroused the sect's dissatisfaction. They believe that the Empire did this deliberately again and asked the Empire to hand over the murderer within 3 days. Now we, the men in black, have been under tremendous pressure. We have used all methods to find no trace of the murderer, and the cause of death of these 2 elders cannot be found out. So now the Empire is in a bit of trouble, and we must find out what is going on as soon as possible. Because Mr. Lin, you specialize in handling all kinds of strange incidents and have achieved outstanding results, so I came to you to ask you to participate in this mission and find out the real culprit behind the whole incident. Lin Yi thought of this, you should be looking for more than just me. Huang Yiming smiled awkwardly, yes, all departments of our men in black are looking for the most powerful personnel. We must resolve this matter within 3 days. Lin Yi thought for a while, this matter is not simple. It involves the struggle between the sect and the Empire. It's hard to say who the murderer is inside. If I succeed in solving the case, I'm afraid I will offend some unknown people. I'm just a person who deals with strange or grudge incidents. I don't want to get involved in the struggle between people. Such people have never ended well, right? Huang Yiming was silent for a moment when he heard this. Then he said, the reward this time is extraordinary. In order to solve this matter, the Empire took out a mysterious treasure as a reward. These treasures are called Tianjing. They are an indescribable treasure with mysterious power. It allows the wearer to be blessed by this power, affecting his essence. The combat ability will be greatly improved, and there will even be a mysterious self-healing ability. Even the damage to the soul, spirit, and soul can be repaired and any damage can be cured. It is an omnipotent treasure, and there are many unknown secrets in it. It can also be refined into a magical weapon to exert great effects. The value of this treasure will tempt even the beings above the ghost and immortal realm. I wonder if Mr. Lin is interested now. Lin Yi just frowned slightly. Although this thing sounded very good, he did not lack the means of attack and defense, so these things were not very attractive. I'm sorry, these things don't mean much to me, and they're not enough for me to take action. And even if there is a treasure, you have to have a life to get it. As soon as I heard about this matter, I didn't know how many conspiracies were hidden in it. Even if I really found out the secret, I might be silenced. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 392. The problem here is not small. A mysterious and unknown treasure cannot make me ignore this danger. Huang Yiming listened to this, thought for a while and said, I am very clear about Mr. Lin's methods. If you take action, there is a high probability that you can see through this conspiracy. But your worries are not unreasonable. After all, no one wants to try with their own life. There is a strange thing in our blood department. This thing is called Thousand Faces human skin. It is a mysterious strange thing. As long as someone wears it, they will completely change into another person's appearance. And this appearance must be a person who exists in this world. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. This person has the past, present and future. As long as you wear this mask, no one will know your true identity. And the most terrifying thing about this mask is that as long as you wear this mask, even if I originally know the person behind the mask, I will think that you are the person shown by the mask. This is something that can confuse cause and effect. Even if you take off the mask, I will not remember that you have ever worn this mask. There will not even be a memory in my mind that I gave you the Thousand Faces human skin. All those who have used this mask in our blood department are unknown secrets. No one knows who has used this mask for what. If you borrow this mask, you can perfectly cover up your identity. I don't know if Mr. Lin is willing to accept this task now. Lin Yi thought about it and thought thoughtfully, who else knows that you invited me? Only I know, because only I believe that Mr. Lin can solve this problem. I admire your performance in Honglian Mansion very much. Lin Yi said, there is another question. If I wear a mask, will you forget to give it to me? Then, I appear in front of you with the face of a stranger and tell you that I can solve the case. What will you think? Will you be detailed? Huang Yiming smiled slightly. It's very simple. You just need to tell me that you used the Thousand Faces human skin, and I will know why you appeared in front of me with another face. You just need to tell me the cause and effect. People who use the Thousand Faces human skin have a characteristic. There is a faint stench, just like the smell of salted fish. We will only forget who the Thousand Faces human skin was given to, but we will not forget other things. Lin Yi thought for a while. If that's the case, then it's okay. Another question, are our phones monitored? Huang Yiming's confident voice sounded. You can rest assured about this. The phones of us men in black are encrypted and no one can monitor them. This is the rule set when the Men in Black was first established. Lin Yi smiled coldly when he heard this. Rules are meant to be broken, so when you told me this, I'm afraid someone has heard the whole story. The so-called Thousand Faces human skin is just a waste of time and will still expose me. So I still refuse this matter, so goodbye. After saying that, he hung up the phone without waiting for Huang Yiming's reply. Huang Yiming looked a little stunned on the other end of the phone. He had been so sure of success that he didn't expect an accident to happen because of the phone problem. He looked a little ugly when he thought of this, but when he thought of Lin Yi's worry, he had to let go of his depression. It seems that we can only find someone else. At this time, he didn't know that Lin Yi had quietly left his Wanchaiwu. It was getting dark outside, around 7 or 8 o'clock. Lin Yi was leaning on the broken cane, wearing a windbreaker and a top hat, looking like a gentleman with a lot of manners. In fact, he was also somewhat tempted by the Tianjing that Huang Yiming mentioned, because this thing can heal physical scars and spiritual injuries. This kind of panacea-like thing naturally attracted his attention. After all, cultivation is not a simple matter, and in this treacherous era, anything is possible. Although he has the Wanchaiwu in his hand, the Lingbo bodyguard, many strange objects, and countless exercises for him to choose from. But none of these things can heal the damage to the soul. This it is said to be his most vulnerable aspect. Once a problem occurs, it will be very troublesome for him to remedy it, and he may even pay a huge price. So the time when the sky crystal appears is just right, which can make him make up for his last shortcoming. He directly rejected Huang Yiming on the phone because he wanted to prevent eavesdropping. Because even if there is a thousand-faced human skin, it would be meaningless if this conversation was eavesdropped. But after he refused, even if someone checked this recording, they would not suspect him. The reason he went out now was to prepare to contact Huang Yiming privately and quietly. After he got the thousand-faced human skin, he would take over the case. Lin Yi, who left the Wanchaiwu, did not notice that two figures appeared behind him and were following him closely. A danger was approaching him. Black and white impermanence, the first existence on the killer list, has been waiting for an opportunity. But Lin Yi has not left the Wanchaiwu, and the two of them are too cautious and did not rush into the Wanchaiwu to kill Lin Yi. They have investigated Lin Yi's Wanchaiwu in detail, and someone has disappeared in it before. In addition, Lin Yi once got the core of the strange illusion, so they judged that this Wanchaiwu might have integrated the core of the strange illusion, and there are unknown dangers. It is not wise to enter rashly. So they will be cautious outside, waiting for Lin Yi to go out and be alone before they can take action. They have planned everything long ago, and have also observed Lin Yi's approximate cultivation and possible means, and formulated corresponding tactics. They only need to wait for the other party to go out before they can start to act. And now that Lin Yi is out, they are already planning to take action. Lin Yi came to a road called Sunflower Street along the block. There are not many shops on this street, and there are walls on both sides. It is a new type of large community. The construction time is no more than 10 years. Because there is no community basement, this street has always been very deserted. When he reached the middle of the street, a strange shrill laugh sounded in his ears. In an instant, Lin Yi felt a mysterious force drilling into his mind. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 393. This is a sharp mysterious force, attacking his spirit and the devouring thief soul. When danger came, Lin Yi reacted almost instinctively. His devouring thief soul spread a wave of soul power, which was instantly injected into the Lotus God Jade under his feet. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. The next moment, the entire Lotus God Jade, stimulated by the soul power, bloomed with a hazy red glow. This glow instantly enveloped the spirit and the devouring thief soul, protecting Lin Yi from all directions without dead ends. Dong. A roaring sound like a big bell sounded in Lin Yi's mind, making him dizzy, as if he was drunk, and his face flushed a little. At this time, a strange gust of wind had already reached his back, full of murderous intent. Danger was coming, and the smell of death enveloped him. Without any hesitation, the true destiny was launched. In an instant, his body was shrouded in a glimmer of green light. Two black iron claws swept through his body. The black cane of destruction, under Lin Yi's control, flashed and chopped behind him. The violent spiritual wave was injected into it, and a faint black light appeared on the cane of destruction. A breath of destroying the life of all things permeated it. Like a crescent moon, the cane of destruction crossed the trajectory and enveloped behind him. The two figures, at the moment when their claws passed through Lin Yi's body, noticed the huge problem and danger. One of them seemed very surprised. Huh? The two figures flashed back at the same time. The arc drawn by the black light of the cane of destruction just flashed in front of them. Their clothes just touched the black light by a hair's breadth, and the light swept past. The two felt a chill on their chests, and a patch of black ash appeared on their clothes on their chests. Ashes scattered, and they saw a horizontal tear on their chests. A slight trace of black and gray appeared on the back of their clothes. Apparently, the blow still grazed their flesh. The blow made them feel a huge danger, and the skin on their chests was charred and they had no feeling. Black and white impermanence took a breath of cold air, and looked at the destruction cane in Lin Yi's hand with vigilance, completely unbelievable. What is that? Such a powerful force. Black impermanence's voice was low and powerful. Strange thing, no news at all. At this time, Lin Yi had turned around and looked at the two people who attacked him. He frowned. Who are you and why did you attack me? Bai Vuchain looked at Lin Yi calmly. Someone offered to buy your life, and we brothers accepted it. But it's amazing that you can block our soul screams. It seems that you have a treasure that can protect the spirit. We got no information about this. You are really good at hiding things. Lin Yi looked at Bai Vuchain, frowned slightly, and then sneered. No matter who is behind you, since you are attacking me, you must be prepared to die. At this point, he walked slowly towards the two people. The right hand of the destruction cane was slightly tilted, as if holding a sword. At this time, Lin Yi still maintained the state of true destiny, and the whole person seemed like an illusory phantom. But the destruction cane was not affected. It could still destroy substantial objects. Looking at Lin Yi's strange state, Bai Vuchain looked at each other, and a strange shadow appeared behind them. One step back, they disappeared from Lin Yi's sight. At this time, Lin Yi's eyes lit up with the light of the true destiny, and the whole world became completely different in an instant. At the level of space and time, energy fluctuations kept flashing in his eyes. Two gray figures were approaching him silently. A trace of cold light appeared in Lin Yi's eyes, and he stood still without moving, with a trace of doubt on his face. Are you gone? At this time, the black and white impermanents were in a strange state, a level that could not be observed by the naked eye, and were slowly approaching Lin Yi. They both had black iron claws on their hands, and these iron claws were filled with a strange power, which was obviously some kind of strange thing. He Vuchain wore a bell on his left hand, and Bai Vuchain wore a bracelet full of skulls on his right hand. And the two of them had strange shackles on their feet. At this time, the shackles exuded a grey glow, covering each of them, so that they could walk in this mysterious level. When the two came to Lin Yi's left and right, they raised their left and right hands and shook the bells and skull bracelets on their hands. Two terrifying spiritual impacts instantly rushed into Lin Yi's mind. The sound of ghosts crying and gods howling, directly impacting the soul, froze Lin Yi in an instant. At this time, Lin Yi's left hand quietly made the Aquarius seal, and his essence flowed through his body. His spirit was shrouded in a faint golden glow. At the same time, the soul power of the devouring thief soul had been injected into the lotus god jade. The power of the red light rose from the lotus god jade and quickly enveloped his spirit. Seeing a stiff expression on Lin Yi's face, the black and white impermanents at the mysterious level attacked again. This time, their claws emerged with a dark and strange power, filled with terrifying fluctuations, and grabbed Lin Yi. At this time, Lin Yi turned his head to look at He Vuchain, and a strange smile suddenly rose on the corner of his mouth. In an instant, He Vuchain was instinctive and felt something was wrong. But it was too late. A black light had burst out from Lin Yi's hand and instantly pierced his chest. He Vuchain looked at the black crutch that pierced his chest, and suddenly turned into a cloud of smoke. At this time, Bai Vuchain's claws had reached the back of Lin Yi's head. The chicken claws with great power pierced Lin Yi's head in an instant. But it was still the same as at the beginning, and it did no harm to Lin Yi. They could not break the power of Zhenming Wujiang at all. However, Lin Yi also noticed a problem at this time. The attack from Bai Vuchain was full of the opponent's power. When it pierced into his body, it also had some impact on Zhenming Wujiang. In this short period of time, 5% of the spiritual wave had disappeared. That means that at most 20 fatal attacks can be made in one battle. At this time, the cane of destruction in his right hand had already stabbed behind him. But Bai Vuchain had retreated at the moment when the attack failed. In a flash, he disappeared behind him, crossed a distance, and appeared a few meters away. There, a cloud of smoke gathered and turned into He Vuchain. Bai Vuchain walked out of the strange level, and a trace of thought appeared in his eyes. Both of them looked at Lin Yi in surprise. Obviously, the mysterious method that Lin Yi had just displayed was very difficult for them to understand. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 394. Lin Yi did not continue to attack because the methods of black and white Vuchain were too slippery and they kept disappearing and reappearing. He clearly pierced He Vuchain with one blow just now. But the opponent actually turned into smoke and dissipated in an instant, avoiding his own fatal blow. He didn't understand this process clearly, but through the true interpretation of life, he vaguely realized that the moment he stabbed the other party had actually disappeared. A mysterious method like a prophet. Before cracking this method, it would be very difficult for him to kill these two people. This has nothing to do with the intensity of power, it is purely an incomprehensible method that makes him unable to start. Obviously, Bai Vuchain also viewed Lin Yi in the same way. Bai Vuchain's cold face smiled slightly. He put one hand across his waist like a gentleman and nodded slightly. Mr. Lin's power is beyond our expectation, so that's it for today. When we find Mr. Lin's flaw, we will visit him again. Goodbye then. He Vuchain glanced at Lin Yi coldly. He felt a huge threat from the blow just now. If it weren't for the fact that he had a strange object that belonged to the passive activation series, he might have died. The two of them slowly backed away and disappeared into the shadows. However, in Lin Yi's eyes, he could clearly see that they had entered another level of time and space. Frowning, this time he was sure that the two of them had left. It seems that we have to be careful in the future. These two people may appear at any time without any warning. Without opening the true fate interpretation, I wouldn't be able to detect their existence at all. Thinking of this, there was an unspeakable solemnity in his eyes. Taking a deep breath, in the battle just now, a problem was exposed. On a spiritual level, he still seems relatively weak. If they notice this, I'm afraid they will make targeted arrangements next time and then carry out an assassination. It seems that I have to check who these two people are. A killer wearing black and white robes. And this method is obviously not unknown. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but show a trace of solemnity in his eyes. After thinking for a while, he turned around and disappeared here, constantly thinking about various possibilities in his mind. These two people will not come to kill me for no reason. Who is behind this? My real enemies are limited, but because of the strange object at the core of the strange illusion, someone might be coveting it. I'm afraid it's not that easy to figure this out. Although he didn't know who was behind it, several people were already on his blacklist. One of them is Brandy's brother Kirian, who was threatened by him and had to pay to find him. The second one was the mysterious Xuanhuan. This person was defeated by him and remained silent. Lin Yi didn't believe that the other party would just let him go. The third one, Chang Sui, who once came to him to announce a mission, was filmed by himself threatening the video. I am afraid that she has been secretly worried that she will not send someone. These three people had direct hatred towards him, and these two people were most likely to be invited by them. But this is all just speculation without any evidence. And except for Chang Sui, he could not find any trace of the other two people. Thinking of this, Lin Yi couldn't help but sigh, forget it, it's hard to talk about this. Although I took on the task and tried my best to avoid this kind of hatred with humans, it seems that it can't be avoided and can only be reduced as much as possible. The soldiers are coming to cover up the water and the earth. We can only wait for them to take action next time. I have to work on my mental weaknesses before they make their next move. But there is another possibility. The soul material I sold caused trouble. But looking at their methods, they obviously want to kill me. If you want to get the soul material extraction method from me, you should live instead of kill. The clouds were so strange that Lin Yi couldn't tell which event was the source of everything. However, after becoming strongly vigilant about this matter, Lin Yi quickly accelerated his pace and moved towards his goal. About 10 minutes later, Lin Yi arrived outside the Hell Bar silently. At this time, he was standing in a dark alley next to the Hell Bar. Bar Street, the bars here are all independent houses, with wide or narrow alleys between them. There is no light inside, and it is usually a place where garbage is placed. Of course, there are also some dark things going on inside. At this time, Lin Yi came to the alley next to the Hell Bar. His whole body was filled with the radiance of boundless life, and he sank into the ground in the next moment. The brilliance of the true meaning of life flashed in his eyes. Walking among the dirt and debris underground, he quickly captured Huang Yiming's position. At this time, Huang Yiming was in his bedroom on the second floor of Hell Bar. He was waving his pen and ink, obviously recording what he was writing. After seeing him, Lin Yi avoided everyone's eyes and the monitor's eyes, and approached his bedroom. 10 seconds later, he was already standing in Huang Yiming's room. The sudden appearance of the figure startled Huang Yiming, but when he saw Lin Yi, he suddenly froze. At this time, Lin Yi stood in front of him like a phantom, and he could not feel any breath at all. "Mr. Lin, what are you doing?" Lin Yi smiled and looked at Huang Yiming and said, "I am here to accept your mission this time. But in order to prevent our conversation from being eavesdropped on by someone on the phone, I rejected you and went there in person." Huang Yiming smiled when he heard this. "Mr. Lin, you are so cautious." Lin Yi smiled, if I were not cautious, I would have died long ago. From your description of this matter, it is obvious that someone wants to destroy your alliance. 2 elders of the sect died. I want to ask, what level of existence are these 2 elders? Huan Yiming said with a serious face, these 2 elders are both at the top of the Ghost Immortal Way. I heard that they are elders in the sect who specialize in managing external diplomatic affairs. These elders are not very powerful. Basically, they are those who have failed in the sect's struggle or have exhausted their potential. They will serve as such foreign affairs elders. Their main job is to be responsible for various external affairs of the section. This time, they are here to conduct the second round of negotiations and consultations with the Empire. Regarding their respective interests, bottom lines, and red lines in the future, resource allocation, etc. Lin Yi had a general understanding after hearing this. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 395. After thinking for a while, he said, first tell me the whole thing in detail, including everything that happened from the first negotiation to now. Huan Yiming nodded, pointed to the seat in front of his desk and said, Mr. Lin, please sit down and we'll talk slowly. Lin Yi nodded and released the true fate Wujiang. At the same time, the whole body's energy is locked in the body, without revealing anything, as if the whole person does not exist. He took a few steps over and sat in front of Huan Yiming's desk. Just listen to Huan Yiming say, the first time the sect officially came into contact with the Empire was in the early morning of the first day after the third change of the world. There are 33 sects in total, including the demonic path, the righteous path, and many branches. The person who presided over the entire meeting at that time was Mr. Huang Yuxian of the Weird Object Management Office. Huang Yuxian? What level of existence is he? Huan Yiming shook his head and said, none of us know how strong this gentleman is. But he has been guarding the management office where weird things gather all year round. You can imagine how powerful he is. There are hundreds of strange objects there, and powerful strange beings come almost every night. But Master Huan Yuxian has been guarding there for at least 80 years. There was never any danger. Lin Yi felt awestruck when he heard this. In 1980, it meant that the other party had been a strong person a long time ago, and the power he had should be on the weird side. After all, the improvement of martial arts practice has only become possible after the changes in the world in recent years. Lin Yi was thoughtful and looked at Huan Yiming, is this adult cultivating a strange side of power? Huan Yiming thought for a while and said, I don't know. Because this lord's power is always kept secret, and he has never made a move, at least not seen by others. But what I can confirm is that he is one of the most powerful beings currently known to the Red Lotus Empire. It is precisely because of his existence that we can protect the order and stability of the entire Red Lotus Empire. You must know that the Empire's biggest enemy was the terrifying and mysterious White Gloves organization in the past. If the Empire didn't have the ability to compete with it, I'm afraid these White Gloves would have destroyed the Empire long ago. Lin Yi nodded when he heard this, I probably understand the whole incident. Go on, did anything happen during this process? Huan Yiming thought for a while and said, the first round of negotiations was actually very tense at the beginning. Based on what I saw at the time, these sects were very arrogant. The conditions put forward are also very intolerable. They demand that all rights in various regions of the Red Lotus Empire be directly handed over to their section. Otherwise they will use force to carve up the entire Red Lotus Empire. To know the Red Lotus Empire at that time, we also had to suppress those strange and mutated existences. The military strength is greatly restricted, and we are doing our best to maintain the stability of the empire. And these sects want to divide their rights and territory when they come up, which naturally angers the leaders of the empire. However, the people of these sects are indeed very powerful. Almost every foreign affairs elder has 1 to 2 magical weapons. The existence of the ghost immortal Dao, After mastering the magic weapon, the increase in combat power is very astonishing. As long as the magic weapon is properly equipped, it can even fight a small military organization of hundreds of people alone. The Empire has already conducted various studies on the power test of the Ghost Immortal Way, so it has a clear understanding of their combat power. Although we know that the sect is powerful, it is impossible for the Empire to allow this to happen. So the Empire also showed some of its power at that time, which made these sects feel the pressure. After that, the negotiations continued. Under the auspices of Master Xuanhuan, an agreement was finally reached with the section. The sect can send its own disciples or supported forces to join the Red Lotus Empire's campaign. But everything must be run according to the rules of the Red Lotus Empire, and seizing control of the city by force is not allowed to happen. When Lin Yi heard this, he immediately understood what the Red Lotus Empire meant. If the sect wanted to intervene in the affairs of the Red Lotus Empire, it was okay. But intervention must be done in accordance with the laws of the Empire, which means that the sect must abide by the rules. Huang Yiming continued, now that we are here, the first round of the agreement has been completed. And in order to show its sincerity, the sect also sent its own strength. Joined the army in various cities in the Empire to clean up those strange objects. With the agreement reached, the first round of the agreement is fully concluded. However, within a few days after this, various provinces and cities held re-elections for governors. What the Empire didn't expect was that all the governors of the other 8 states were members of the sect or forces. It was only after this incident that the upper echelons of the Red Lotus Empire became aware of the sect's conspiracy. It turns out that these sects have already laid out their plans, even going back hundreds of years. At that time, they had already sent their own people from their hidden secret realm into the Honglian world for support and layout. Even the upper echelons of the Red Lotus Empire have some people standing behind them. After an urgent study, the upper echelons of the Empire invited the sects to hold a second agreement. The content of this agreement is very unfavorable to Xuanhuan, and they originally did not intend to accept it. But the incident of the Sun God at the North Pole made them change their minds. Faced with the power of the Sun God, even these sects have to consider the risk of directly turning against the Empire. However, before the second agreement was held, this mysterious murder occurred. 2 sect elders died the day before yesterday and yesterday. The sects are very dissatisfied now. They think this is intentional by the Empire and want the Empire to give an explanation, otherwise this second agreement will be a big deal. The agreement cannot be held. In fact, it is just a prelude to making a big deal and asking for a high price, and they want the Empire to make concessions. Lin Yi was thoughtful when he heard this, and looked at Huang Yiming and said, what is the main purpose of this second agreement? Huang Yiming looked at Lin Yi and said, Mr. Lin should have guessed it. This time the agreement requires all the agents of the sects in the upper echelons of the Empire to resign. This is the bottom line of the Empire. At the same time, it requires the sects to give up the positions of deputy governors of each state and hand them over to the direct personnel of the Empire. When Lin Yi heard this, he immediately knew what was going on, that is to say, the upper echelons of the Empire want to save the situation. Are you going to take deterrence? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 396. Huang Yiming smiled and said, yes, these sects are too ruthless, and many things are hidden too deeply. In the first agreement, the Empire actually suffered a big loss and fell into their trap. But the Empire is not a force that is willing to suffer losses. It can only take advantage of others, and there is no such thing as being taken advantage of. During the Great Change at the North Pole, the God of the Sun was directly demonstrated, so he naturally wanted to win back the victory. Lin Yi nodded when he heard this, I basically understand what's going on. Next, give me the 1,000-faced human skin mask. I'm going to hide my identity to investigate this matter. Huan Yiming nodded. This thing has always been kept by the minister. I need to apply to him. It should be available within about half an hour. Lin Yi nodded, but remember to keep it secret. Apart from you, I don't want anyone else to know about this. Huan Yiming showed a smile on his face, nodded and said, Mr. Lin, you can rest assured that there are regulations on the use of the 1,000-faced human skin. As long as I apply, the minister will not ask who uses it. Lin Yi nodded, that's fine. By the way, let me ask another question, what is Tianjing? Huan Yiming was slightly stunned when he heard this. The origin of this thing is mysterious and unpredictable. It's something that imperial researchers found in a crater. It is an alien object from the sky. After research by the Imperial Research Institute, it can be determined that the sky crystal is an unknown substance and does not exist in the Red Lotus world. And it seems to be a universal item that can absorb a large amount of mysterious energy from the outside world and transform it into the special energy in the sky crystal. This special energy can repair physical damage. Even if a severed limb is regenerated, severe damage to the mind and spirit can be healed. It has unimaginable power, beyond ordinary people's understanding, and can transform any power into special energy in the sky crystal. When Lin Yi heard this, he thought for a while and said, absorb external energy and convert it into Tianjing energy. Although this Tianjing energy has many advantages, doesn't it have any shortcomings? Huan Yiming smiled, the effect of this Tianjing is very powerful. According to what I know, it will have a certain effect even on Lord Huan Yuxian. Hearing this, Lin Yi knew that this Tianjing was anything but simple. You must know that the various magic weapons and treasures in this world will become less and less effective as their level rises. When they reach the top, there are even fewer things that can still have an effect on them. Those things are what the strong ones really want to fight for. Thinking of this, he nodded slightly, okay, I'm very interested in this case. Please bring the 1,000 faces skin over as soon as possible. Huan Yiming nodded and said, then please wait a moment, Mr. Lin. I will take it out after applying to the minister. Having said this, Huan Yiming quickly sat down in his seat, then took out his mobile phone and quickly sent a message. Just a few seconds later, Huan Yiming's cell phone made a ding-dong sound. He looked at Lin Yi with a smile on his face and said, Mr. Lin, the minister has agreed to the permission to use the 1,000 faces skin. I'll go get it from the underground office. Lin Yi nodded, I'll wait for you in the basement first. As he spoke, Lin Yi became elusive, sank into the ground and disappeared. Seeing this scene, Huan Yiming's brows suddenly jumped, and Lin Yi gave him an increasingly mysterious feeling. Mr. Lin is really getting better and better. When he came to the basement and opened the door and entered the minister's office, Lin Yi was already standing here silently. Huan Yiming was actually very surprised. The minister's office had already deployed some mysterious powers to prevent any resentful spirits or strange beings from entering silently. But Lin Yi came so quietly that he didn't even trigger any alarm. This ability made him feel very shocked, beyond his imagination. I really don't know what kind of ability this is. After entering the underground office, Huan Yiming came to the left side of the office. There was a row of bookshelves there, with thick books on them that seemed to be old. Huan Yiming's eyes locked on one of the books and took it down. This book was 10 centimeters thick. The book has its name written on it, The Story of the Man with 1,000 Faces. Lin Yi suddenly realized when he saw the title of the book, is the 1,000-faced human skin hidden in this book? Huan Yiming smiled slightly, yes, 1,000 faces of human skin is hidden in this book. He placed the book on his desk and opened it from the middle. Then, a face that looked like human skin appeared on the page. Huan Yiming picked up the leather face from the book, turned around and handed it to Lin Yi. Mr. Lin, As long as you bring this thousand-faced human skin, you will become another person in this world, and I will forget everything related to this thing, as well as your original identity." Lin Yi nodded, and a spiritual wave rushed into the thousand-faced human skin in his hand. The spiritual wave was devastating and instantly entered the deepest part of the thousand-faced human skin, and then a stream of information appeared in his mind. Causal human skin, randomly replace anyone's life. He thought thoughtfully, it seems that this is its real name. Thinking of this, he already covered his face with the human skin mask. When the causal human skin touched his face, it melted instantly and covered Lin Yi's head completely. A few seconds later, Lin Yi completely turned into another person. When a brand new face appeared on Lin Yi's face, a mysterious power spread around. Huang Yiming was the first to be enveloped by this power. His eyes were confused for a moment, and then he immediately came to his senses and looked at Lin Yi, who appeared in front of him. His face changed drastically. "Who are you? Why are you here?" As he said this, his hand had already touched his waist, where the bulge was obviously his weapon. Lin Yi looked at Huang Yiming, who didn't seem to be playing dumb at all, and said with a smile on his face, "I brought the thousand-faced human skin because I wanted to hide my identity to solve the 2 murders that occurred at the second negotiation meeting." Hearing this, Huang Yiming was stunned at first, and then he suddenly realized and looked at the story of the thousand-faced man on the table. A trace of solemnity appeared in his eyes, and it took a long time to come back to his senses. "I see. I understand. What should I call you now?" Lin Yi smiled slightly. "You can call me Detective Kellen." "Detective Kellen. Okay, Mr. Detective, let's leave here first. I'll take you to the crime scene." Lin Yi smiled slightly and quickly left with Huang Yiming. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 397. In the lobby of Hell Bar, Li Changfang was still serving as the bar counter. He looked at Huang Yiming and Lin Yi, who came out from inside, with a look of surprise on his face. She had never seen Lin Yi enter the Hell Bar before. He was a completely unknown person, and a sharp look suddenly appeared in her eyes. "She guards here, and no one can ever enter the headquarters of the Blood Ministry silently." Looking at Lin Yi, who followed Huang Yiming out, she immediately felt something was wrong. His right hand reached directly under the counter and pulled out a special pistol. Inside are the newly developed power-breaking bullets, specifically targeted at powerful warriors. After Li Changfang took out his gun, he pointed it directly at Lin Yi. "Who are you and why did you come out of it?" Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. "Huang Yiming, have you been kidnapped?" At this time, Huang Yiming was alarmed by Li Changfang's actions and immediately turned to look at her. He quickly waved his hands to stop her and said, "Li Changfang, please stop, you have misunderstood. This is the detective I hired, who specializes in handling murder cases that arise at sect and empire meetings." Li Changfang was slightly stunned when he heard this, and looked at Lin Yi with some solemn eyes. "But how did he get into the blood department? Let me make it clear, I have been guarding here, and no one can get in through me." Lin Yi looked at Li Changfang's serious expression and knew that she was very concerned about his appearance. You immediately know what the other person is thinking. Since she could appear silently in the blood department, it was possible for others to appear as well, and she had to figure out why. Lin Yi walked out at this time, looked at her with a smile on his face and said, "Hello, bar lady. I have some special abilities. I can directly locate this Mr. Huang Yiming and then reach him. So the distance in space, formations, and forbidden methods are of no use to me." Hearing this, Li Changfang was suddenly shocked. She didn't know where Huang Yiming knew the person in front of her. She had never heard of this method. Looking at Huang Yiming, "Are you sure you found this?" Huang Yiming nodded and said, "Li Changfang, don't worry, there is nothing wrong with this person. Li Changfang then said doubtfully, okay. Huang Yiming looked at Lin Yi and said, Mr. Detective, let's go. Let's go to the club first. The representatives of those sects are all there. Lin Yi nodded and quickly left the Hell Bar with him, heading towards the center of Red Lotus City. Huang Yiming drove a black ordinary car, and Lin Yi sat in the passenger seat. Huang Yiming introduced to Lin Yi in detail the manner of death of these two people in the car. The ones who died were people from two different sections. One is the Foreign Affairs Elder of Kishan Xie section. One is a Foreign Affairs Elder from Takingshan. The Qi Tian Xie sect is a sect of the demonic way, and Takingshan is a sect of the righteous way section. These two sects, one located in the western province and the other in the southern province, are not in a hurry, so the possibility of them colluding with each other is very small. We infer that someone else in the sect secretly took action, and the two sects' foreign affairs elders were just victims. Of these two people, one died in his bedroom and the other died in the garden of the clubhouse. In the process, they did not seem to show any signs of struggle. According to our coroner's autopsy, no injuries were found on their bodies. We came to the conclusion that they may have been attacked suddenly and psychologically, leaving them defenseless and dying. But logically this is impossible. As a powerful being at the level of Ghost Immortal Deo, people who have condensed their souls will definitely practice various Taoist techniques to protect their souls. I want to kill them with one blow, and it is a direct attack on the soul. That is unless it is a being above the ghost and immortal realm. But Red Lotus City is not like other places. As long as someone of this level appears, they will be noticed immediately and cannot be hidden at all. And for safety reasons and to protect the representatives of these sects, the Guild Hall has installed various state-of-the-art surveillance equipment. It monitors energy, matter, and space and time. It's almost impossible to kill two elders silently. Hearing this, Lin Yi's eyes sank slightly, revealing a hint of solemnity. Two different sects, and both were elders at the Ghost Immortal Deo level, were killed without any resistance. Just thinking about how terrifying the power and means involved could be. If he wants to intervene in this matter, he must be very cautious, because unknown dangers may appear at any time. He took a deep breath and touched the stand-in puppet in his arms. This thing can withstand a fatal attack. If he encounters an unpredictable danger, he will withdraw immediately after just one attack. Although Tianjing was precious, it was not worth his life. But all this is just his speculation. He still needs to go to the scene to know what is going on. After talking all the way, a few minutes later, the two of them arrived at the Guild Hall. The Guild Hall is a large mansion, covering an area of at least tens of thousands of square meters, and is a huge four-story building. When Lin Yi and Huang Yiming entered the club, they were immediately subjected to a strict inspection. At this time, there was basically a guard every 3 steps, and various surveillance cameras were everywhere, from the canopy to the ground, and even underground. Not to mention people, even a fly trying to get in would leave a record. Standing at the inspection channel set up at the entrance, a cold voice sounded. "Sir, please describe what you are carrying." Lin Yi thought for a while and said, "I carry this crutch and a mobile phone, nothing else." At this time, Lin Yi's true destiny was slightly activated, covering his abdomen, forming a small circle. The substitute puppet had been put in by him. From the outside, there is absolutely no trace of the puppet. This is a new use of true destiny. Lin Yi creates an illusory place in his body, where he can place some small things, specifically for hiding. Soon, one after another, rays of light began to shine on Lin Yi, analyzing his entire body. About 10 minutes later, every part of his body was swept by light. A cold voice sounded again, "After inspection, you are not carrying any dangerous items, you can go in." Click. A door opened in front of him, and Lin Yi walked out. Huang Yiming was waiting for him outside, and he breathed a sigh of relief when he saw him come out safely. The house of everything I created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 398. Mr. Kellen, this is routine. Everyone who enters here must undergo a strict inspection. Especially after this case, the security level has been raised to the top. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow dot. No one is exempt, including us black-clad staff. Lin Yi smiled and nodded. It's okay, I understand. Let's go to the crime scene first. Huan Yiming nodded and quickly took Lin Yi along the corridor to the elevator. The bodies of these two people are still at the crime scene and have not been moved out. All of them were frozen there with special Taoist magic. And there are people strictly monitoring 24 hours a day, so there will be no problems. A few minutes later, the two of them took the elevator to the third floor. This is room 308, where a foreign affairs elder of the Kishan Xie sect died. Speaking of this, Huan Yiming led Lin Yi to the door of room 308. There are two guards waiting here. When they saw Lin Yi and the other two, they immediately stopped them. Who are you? You can't just enter here. Huan Yiming looked at them and immediately showed his ID and said, this is the detective who came to solve the case. I am Huan Yiming from the Black Blood Department. We have been registered when we entered, you can check. After seeing Huan Yiming's ID, they immediately used their communicators to ask. Hello, calling the monitoring room. This is the monitoring room, please speak. There are two gentlemen outside room 308, saying they are here to investigate the case. One of them is a detective, and the other is Huan Yiming from the Blood Department. Are they allowed to pass? Allow them to pass, and it has been registered. Okay. After asking, the guard turned his head and looked at Lin Yi and the other two, and they said expressionlessly, okay, you can go in. As he said that, he took out a room card and swiped it lightly. Click. The door slowly opened, revealing a passage. The two entered the room, which was a living room, a separate bathroom, a kitchen balcony and a bedroom. This is a standard, one-suite commercial model. The interior decoration is very classical and the various furniture is also very exquisite. You can tell at a glance that it cost a lot. However, at this time, on the floor of the living room, an old man in a Taoist robe was lying quietly. He was covered with a layer of snow-white frost, and it was summer now. This frost seemed to ignore the heat in the air and showed no signs of melting. Huan Yiming looked at Lin Yi and said in a low voice, Mr. Lin, this is the crime scene of the first case. Lin Yi glanced at the room slightly, nodded and said, okay, then I will start checking, wait for me for a while. The light of the true destiny in his eyes flashed, and he instantly captured everything around him. The countless breaths in the air appeared clearly in his eyes. No matter what level of fluctuations, they could not escape his sight. Soon his eyes had seen every corner of the room. Finally fell on the corpse. The corpse was filled with a dark death aura, which continued to emanate from the corpse. The denser the death aura, the longer the person had been dead. At this time, Lin Yi was looking for any suspicious traces in the death aura that permeated the body. His eyes could see that the spirit pool in the man's abdomen and a mysterious space in his mind had become tattered and were dissipating little by little. The one in the head should be the Dao Palace. The spirit pool and the Dao Palace in the brain are basically energy organs. When a person dies, the energy organs will slowly die and eventually disappear from the body without a trace. However, this usually takes some time, as fast as 3 or 5 days, and as slow as half a month. As time passed, Lin Yi slowly retracted his gaze. His brows frowned slightly. I've already looked here, let's go to the second crime scene first. I need to compare to determine which parts of what I see are suspicious. Huan Yiming nodded, okay. With that, the two quickly left room 308 and soon came to the first floor. This time, they walked along the corridor to a garden in the mansion. This mansion is a U-shaped mansion, with a huge garden in the middle, which is very beautifully trimmed, and summer is the time when flowers are brilliant. At this time, the two came to a corner of the garden. There is a pavilion here, and the pavilion is guarded by guards on all sides. When the two came here, they were allowed to enter the pavilion after another verification procedure. This pavilion is not big, only a dozen square meters, and you can see it at a glance. A corpse lay quietly in the center of the pavilion, and like the corpse in room 308, it was covered with a layer of light frost. Lin Yi's eyes were like two searchlights, carefully sweeping around the corpse, leaving no place untouched. After a few minutes, he frowned slightly. From the traces of the two corpses, he found their similarities. A very dim dark green aura appeared in the location of their Deo palaces. He almost ignored this dim aura, because the cause of death of these corpses was determined to be a mental attack. That's why he paid special attention to the location of the other party's Deo palace to see if there was anything unusual. The result surprised him very much. There really was an extraordinary power there. He turned to look at Huang Yiming and said, "These two people were indeed killed. There is a dark green power in their Deo palace. This seems to be a spiritual power. But I can only confirm their temporary cause of death. As for who did it, I'm afraid I have to meet all the foreign affairs elders of the sect to confirm it. You want to meet all of them, which may not be easy. There are 31 representatives of the sect here. Originally, there were 33 in total, and 2 died." Lin Yi shook his head when he heard it. It's inevitable to find out the cause of their death. Huang Yiming frowned, thought for a while and said, "If we gather them together, can you observe anything? This shouldn't be a big problem. But even if I find this person, we still need evidence. Otherwise, if I say that person is the murderer, I'm afraid you won't believe it yourself. After gathering them, we will first lock on the murderer, and then conduct targeted investigations on him." Huang Yiming nodded and said, "Okay, but we have to think of a reason to gather them together first." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 399. It's very simple, just startle the enemy. Huang Yiming was slightly stunned when he heard this. What do you mean? Just tell them that we have found some clues to the two cases, then the real murderer will definitely be uneasy in the process, or show some other psychological behaviors or real behaviors. Taiwanese novel network Rightward Arrow Smoke Ji Woo. At that time, I just need to hide in the dark and observe quietly, and I can see who has the biggest problem. Then verify the clues I found, and it will be easier to determine who the real murderer is. Huang Yiming's eyes lit up when he heard this. That's a good idea. By the way, what did you find so I can tell them? Just say that you found an unknown power in the Taoist palace of the deceased, which can prove that they were killed by him. When they ask you who found it and how you found it, you can say that you invited a professional detective to find these clues. But in order to protect the detective, he will not appear in front of these elders. Then you can send them away. Your main purpose this time is to gather them, and secondly, to provoke the murderer's emotions through ambiguous words and expose him from these people. And I have another suspicion, the murderer the power used is not his own power. It is some kind of treasure. In this way, even if the trace of this power is discovered, it can prevent people from tracing it to him. Hearing this, Huang Yiming couldn't help but say with a headache, I hope they are not as good as they think, otherwise this case will be really difficult to solve. Lin Yi smiled and said, no matter how difficult it is, let's act according to the plan first. Maybe in this process, they will be exposed themselves, right? Huang Yiming nodded, that's the only way, let's try our plan first. The two of them left the pavilion and went directly to the monitoring room on the first floor. This place has been requisitioned as a temporary case office at this time. A minister among the men in black personally presided over it. After Huang Yiming revealed his identity at the door, he walked in with Lin Yi. There are several desks in this room, each with a computer, and the members on the desks are working hard. The walls around are all covered with monitoring screens, locking the entire building. At the window of this room, there is the largest desk. A beautiful woman is sitting there, smoking a jade pipe, and her flaming red lips are the most beautiful scenery in this office. Ms. Rose, the head of the flower department, was transferred to the guild hall at some point. When she saw Huang Yiming and Lin Yi behind him, a hint of interest appeared in her eyes. She naturally knew the purpose of these two people coming to the mansion, and had already investigated Lin Yi's identity. But it was another person who was shown, and that person was still in another province thousands of miles away. In other words, the person in front of him was not the original owner of the face at all. Thinking of the information about the blood department, she immediately knew what was going on. The other party used a thousand-faced human skin, and who was under this face, she needed to guess. At this time, Huang Yiming and Lin Yi came to Ms. Rose. Looking at Ms. Rose, who was surging and charming, Huang Yiming looked at her with concern. He knew that although Ms. Rose seemed to be dressed in a bohemian way, she was actually a very hot person. If you really have bad intentions because of the other person's appearance, you will probably be punished. Some people once thought that this Lady Rose was really as promiscuous as her appearance, and went to tease the other person. As a result, the person who was teased by Lady Rose had a miserable end. He was stripped naked in the middle of the night, tied up on the street, and froze all night. The next day, he was surrounded by others and reported in the newspaper. Since then, Lady Rose's notoriety has become known to everyone, and no one dares to tease her casually, because it is worse than death. Huang Yiming said in a low voice, "Hello, Minister of the Flower Department, I am Huang Yiming from the Blood Department. This is the detective I invited, Mr. Kellen. He and I just went to see two bodies and found some clues. Now we need to invite the foreign affairs elders of those sects together. Mr. Kellen needs to observe them. Lock on who is most likely to be the murderer." Ms. Rose had a smile on her face and looked at Lin Yi with a little interest. "Mr. Detective, are you sure you have found the clues?" Lin Yi looked at the charming Ms. Rose and said with a gentleman's smile, "Minister, can you don't worry, I did find some clues, so I need these people to appear in front of me. I can use unique methods to identify who is most likely to be the murderer. After that, I can make a plan to prove my inference." Ms. Rose nodded and looked at Huang Yiming. "Since it was proposed by the Blood Department, I naturally can't refuse. But you have to understand that the elders of these sects are not easy to meet. I can summon them, but if something unexpected happens, such as them making trouble, it will be the responsibility of your Blood Department to clean up the mess." Huang Yiming's face was solemn when he heard this, and he turned to look at Lin Yi. Lin Yi nodded at him. "Don't worry, we have informed them of the clues as the reason for the call. This is to respect them and their right to know. As long as they have a little bit of reason, they will not make a fuss about this matter. Even if someone wants to do something, then he is most likely the murderer, because only the murderer would want this case to be unsolved." Hearing Lin Yi's words, Ms. Rose looked at him with a slightly different look. This man is very smart. Calling them here is also a setup. Let's see who jumps out. Ms. Rose nodded and said, "Since you already have an idea, I will send someone to notify them. The time is 1 hour later, meet in the conference hall of this mansion. You guys get ready first." Huang Yiming nodded respectfully. "Thank you for the cooperation of the minister." Ms. Rose waved her hand. "It's nothing. After all, the sooner this case is over, the sooner I will be free. I don't want to stay with these troublesome people every day and waste my time and energy. Then I look forward to your performance, Mrs. Rose looked at Lin Yi with a smile, as if she wanted to see through him. Lin Yi just smiled slightly at Mrs. Rose's gaze. Huang Yiming and Lin Yi left the temporary office, and only heard Huang Yiming say, "Let's go. The house of everything I created." Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 400. The two came outside the office and heard Huang Yiming say, "I will go to the conference room to talk face to face with the elders of the sect later. Where do you want to observe them? The conference room is not very big, so you will be noticed immediately when you show up." Lin Yi smiled slightly and said mysteriously, "Don't worry, I will hide later. They don't notice me." Hearing that Lin Yi was so confident, Huang Yiming nodded slightly without asking more questions. "That's fine." Soon the two of them arrived at the conference room first. Lin Yi looked around, the light of his true destiny flashing in his eyes. He soon identified his safe hiding place. There is a huge long table in the conference room, surrounded by chairs. The entire room is about hundreds of square meters, surrounded by open space without any obstruction. It's almost impossible to hide yourself. But he glanced at the canopy and immediately knew where he could hide. The ceiling of the conference room is a suspended ceiling, with about 1 meter of space inside. If it were him, he could easily hide it without being discovered by anyone by using his true destiny. After confirming his hiding place, he looked at Huang Yiming. "Wait a minute. I'll hide up there while you talk to them down below. It will take about 10 minutes. Huang Yiming nodded. "Don't worry, I understand." Lin Yi nodded slightly, turned and walked out of the conference room. He looked around and came directly to a blind spot monitored in the passage, the power distribution room. True destiny unfolded, and in the next moment, he had entered the ceiling directly from the blind spot. Not only the conference room has suspended ceilings, but also the corridors and housing on this floor have suspended ceilings. Like a ninja, Lin Yi quietly returned to the conference room through the space in the ceiling. He sat on the ceiling of the conference room, his eyes revealed a glimmer of true destiny, and he looked down. Everything appeared clearly in his eyes, with nothing to block it. Time passed by, and soon there were footsteps outside the conference room. One after another, figures walked in. Everyone here is at the Ghost Immortal Dao level. They have the peak realm and condense the existence of the Dao Palace. There are also people at the level of ordinary Ghost Immortal. There were 31 people in total. After entering the conference room, they found a chair at random and sat down around a long table. Huang Yiming saw all the foreign affairs elders from various sects arriving. He smiled slightly and said to them, "Hello, elders, I am Huang Yiming from the blood department of the Men in Black. I have called you here this time to report to you the current progress of the situation. We have conducted detailed investigations and studies on the two elders who died. We can 100% confirm that these two elders were killed by others, and we have found traces. There is unknown power in the bodies of these two elders. The Empire is using special means to trace the special power within the two elders. I think we will come to a conclusion soon. So I hope you can wait patiently for a few more days." At this time, one of the 31 elders said in a low voice, "Special power? What power?" The person who spoke was suddenly someone Lin Yi had met before, Hungfa of the Five Elements sect. This is the man behind Kreen. Lin Yi noticed him on the ceiling. Is he also a representative? We are really enemies. However, his eyes did not linger on Hungfa's body. He had already reached the limit of his true fate principle and swept over every elder's body. In just a few minutes of talking, he had already seen the basics of these people clearly. Even the souls of these people hidden in the Tao Palace were glimpsed by him, and any secrets appeared in his eyes at a glance. Then he frowned, because he found no power from these 31 elders that had the same origin as the body of the deceased at the crime scene. This means that the death of these two elders has nothing to do with these 31 elders. This is simply unbelievable. According to the original inference, these sects should not want this meeting to be completed perfectly. Instead, someone used the death of two sect elders to intimidate and oppress the empire to a certain extent, and then asked the empire to make concessions in this meeting. But now it seems that things are not that simple, because Lin Yi did not find any traces of homologous abilities in them. There are no similar treasures. Isn't it what I think? Are there other problems? Countless questions flashed through my mind. Lin Yi continued to look at the people below with some disbelief. At this time, everyone below was already involved in the discussion. Although they did not speak, Lin Yi's eyes could see the thoughts bursting out from their bodies one after another, and they were communicating intensely. These ideas were invisible, but under his gaze they appeared clearly on the paper. The real-life interpretation can even see the message expressed in their thoughts. This was the first time he had encountered such a thing, but it greatly facilitated his understanding of these people. Who did it? Is it someone from our sect? Impossible. Who can kill the peak existence of Ghost Immortal Deo? And it's silent. Even if it's the headmaster level of Earth Immortal Deo, it's impossible to kill us silently. I think there must be something wrong here, but we can use this incident to put pressure on the Empire. Let them back down in the negotiations. Everyone should work together. Even if they can find the murderer, this is also a reason for us to put pressure on them. Yes, this is the best opportunity. The task given to us by the sect is to gain greater benefits. If the negotiations are successful, we may get rewards when we go back, and there may be a chance to break through the current realm in the future. I think everyone has been trapped in this realm for quite some time. This is an opportunity, we must seize it. Soon these people reached an agreement and decided to threaten the Empire with this incident and make the Empire back down in the entire negotiation event. At this time, Hongfa said, "Since your Empire has already investigated something, please find out the results for us as soon as possible. We want to see who dares to attack us. And you are not good at protecting us, which is your Empire's mistake. We even have reason to believe that you did it on purpose. Perhaps your Empire wants to break the agreement with our sect and go to war.